So now, other basic simple skill for fasting is creating your own fresh vegetable broth from scratch. Once again, make sure that you either buy organic produce or you do something to get the pesticides off so that you don't have that extra load while you're trying to heal. And then if you can have potatoes, that's great. So this is going to be much easier for those of you that have already had the ALCAT test because you'll know which vegetables are safe and you can just use all of them. Don't worry about being on rotation while you're fasting. So red potatoes are very alkalizing, which is good for the body. Anything that you can do, like with my Kangen water machine, creates an alkalizing water, so it helps reduce the acidity in your body. And when you're fasting and when you have arthritis, both those conditions tend to make you acidic. So anything you can do to create alkalinity in your body is moving you towards health, which is why we were using the juice and why we're making the broth. So again, red potatoes are really good. You don't have to peel them if you don't want. I just chop mine up in thin slices, and then I've got the alkalizing water from the Kangen machine, but just use any pure filtered water. If you know that you can have garlic, that's a very lovely, tasty thing to put in. So don't use the garlic that's out of a jar because it's got benzoate preservatives usually, and many people react to that. So use fresh garlic because then you know what's in it. And then I usually just slice that up. If you know you can have cabbage or you're using that for your juicing, then that can add some nice flavor too. So basically you can use whatever vegetables you have. Carrots can add a nice little flavor too. So if you know that carrots work for you, good. If you haven't taken the ALCAT test and you don't know if you're reacting against any of these vegetables that I'm using, it's probably best just to stick with something like garlic and potatoes and hope that you don't have an allergic or a hypersensitivity reaction to either of those. And if you guess wrong, then you can cut those out in a water fast in a few days, and then you'll know whether it's something in your broth or your juice or not. But if you haven't taken the ALCAT test, keep your juice and your broth as simple as possible. If you have taken the ALCAT test, then just go to town with whatever vegetables you can have that you think would make a nice combination. So if you know you can have carrots, chop some of those up and put it in. If you like parsley and you know that you can have parsley, you can chop some of that and put it in. If you like celery and you know you have celery, you can chop some of that in. Put it in. And then you just heat your broth for maybe an hour on low, bring it to a boil and let it simmer. And then, many people hate this, but what you're going to need to do is take all these lovely vegetables out and not eat them. All you want is the broth. And it'll have the minerals and all the good parts in that your body can handle while you're fasting. You can save the vegetables if you'd like for after you break your fast. But unless you're having really extreme problems breaking your fast, this is not what you're going to be using to break your fast. The only time that you'd want to break it with a carbohydrate like potatoes is if after several days of trying to reintroduce food, you're not accepting it, then you might want a little bit of very easily digested carbohydrate like potatoes. And probably out of the hundreds of people that I've talked with while they're fasting and when they're breaking fast, only one has ever had to do that, but it was a really useful thing for her, which is why I mention it. But you don't want to, no matter how lovely this food is, if you can't stand to throw it away, just put it aside or let another family member have it. So that's the basic broth. And our next skill is actually a little less savory one. It is, actually that's not true. Our next skill is a very savory one. It's making herbal tea. So we'll talk about that in just a minute.